Let's learn how to answer questions of this kind. What is 70% of 45? What is 2% of 23? I also have here 27 is 45 of what number? You got the idea, right? So we're trying to answer questions involving percent. And this is the way to approach them. We're going to obtain and solve what's called percent equations. And the way we're going to do it is that we're going to take each question and we're going to translate it into math, and as we do that we're going to obtain an equation that we just need to solve. How do we convert question like that or sentence like that into math? Well, we're literally going to translate every word of that sentence. Now the word what, the question word, is representing something that we don't know, right? That's the question word. And since it's representing something that we don't know, then we're going to translate it as the variable. So I'm going to use x. Now, word is will be translated as an equal sign. Next, we see 70%. Well, when we set up an equation, we can't use pure percentages in equations. So the rule is that percentage should always be converted to a decimal. So what decimal represents 70%? Remember, to convert, we have to take decimal point and move it 2 places to the left, 1, 2, and drop it here. So that becomes 0.70, but then 0 at the end, I don't really have to write. So I can just write it as 0.7, like that. So I'm going to say 0.7. Now, word of, we convert to multiplication sign. Next is 45. 45 is the number, so it just stays as the number. We just write it right here, 45. So we translated every single part of that equation and we obtained this equation. And now we have to solve it. Remember, to solve an equation, we want to get x by itself. Well, the good news is that x already by itself in this equation, right? To find what it equals to, we just need to multiply 0.7 by 45. So I'm going to say x equals, and I'm going to do scratch work over here. So when we multiply decimals or number and a decimal, remember we stack the numbers and align them by the rightmost digit. So I have to put 0.7 this way. Now I'm going to multiply ignoring decimal points. So 7 times 5 is 35. Right, 5 carry over 3. 7 times 4 is 28. 28 plus 3 is 31. 31. I only had one number with a decimal point, it's this one, and I only had one digit after a decimal point. So it means that combined, well, it's still one digit after a decimal point. So that's where I'm going to place it. One digit. And that means that the answer is 31.5. So x equals 31.5. And now if I want to write a complete answer to this question, what is 70% of 45? Well, 31.5 is 70% of 45. So answer 31.5 is 70% of 45. Notice that I just replaced word what in the question with my answer, right? Right here. The rest I just copied down. Now let's try this example. What is 2% of 23? Well, we already know what to do. We're going to translate every single part of that question into math symbols. What translates as x is an equal sign. 2%. 2% we have to convert to a decimal. Now we have to take decimal point and move it 2 places to the left. 1, 2. So that becomes 0.02. Of is the multiplication symbol, and then 23 is just the number, so it stays. So here we have a similar situation where x is already by itself, and to find it we simply have to take 23 and multiply it by 0.02. I'm aligning the numbers along the rightmost digit. So 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 2 is 4. 4, 6, and then here combined I have 2 digits after a decimal point, so it means that in the answer I should have 2 digits after a decimal point, which means that I place decimal point here, 0.46. So x equals 0.46, And if I want to write a complete answer, I'm going to put 0.46 here instead of word what, and then I will rewrite everything else. Answer. 0.46 is 2% of 23. This is our next example. 27 is 45 of what number? Again, we start by translating every single part of that sentence into math symbol. Now 27 is already a number, so we just keep it as 27. Is, what is? Is an equal sign. 45%. Percentage we convert to a decimal. 45% is same as the decimal 0.45. Of is the multiplication sign. And then what number? It's the question word, right? Or question words. And that's what we don't know. So that's why we're going to use x, the unknown. And that's the equation we obtained. I'm going to rewrite it again. So 27 equals 0.45 times x. Now to solve this equation, we need to get x by itself. Now it's not by itself. It has 0.45 next to it. So how do we get rid of 0.45? We need to note what operation we have right now between x and 0.45. Well, it's multiplication operation. And to undo that operation, we're going to divide. So I'm going to divide by 0.45 on the right-hand side. And then I'll have to divide by 0.45 on the left-hand side, right, to keep my equation balanced. So that I can cross out. So it's going to be just x on the right-hand side. Here's the equal sign, and the question is what to put here. Well, I have to perform the division. So what I need to do, I need to divide 27 by 0.45, right? That's the separation. How do we divide 27 by 0.45? Well, we'll use long division, but we know that we can't divide by a decimal. When we do long division, we can only divide by a whole number. So I'm going to change 0.45 to a whole number by moving decimal point 2 places to the right. So that becomes 45. But then as I change my second number this way, I have to change my first number exactly the same way. I have to take decimal point, which is right here at the very end. That's why it's not visible. And move it also 2 places to the right. 1, 2. So what number does this become? Well, it becomes 27 and then 2 more zeros. So that becomes 27 and 2 zeros, so it becomes 2700, right? And the second number becomes 45. Now, as soon as I adjusted both numbers this way, now I can perform the division, long division. So remember, it's in and out. So the first number goes in, 2700. The second number goes out, 45. Let's start dividing. 2, I cannot divide by 45. 7, I cannot. 270, so that I should be able to. So how many times 45 goes into 270? Well, that's exactly 6 times. So I put 6 here. 6 times 45 is 270. Subtract, remainder 0. Okay, I already obtained remainder 0, but I noticed that I haven't used 1 0 over here, right? This one has not been used. Well, since I got 0 as the remainder and I have 0 that has not been used, I'm just going to I'm going to place it next to 6, so it becomes 60. That means that 2700 divided by 45 is 60. And answer. I'm going to rewrite this question, but what number I will replace with what I found, 60. So it's going to be 27 is 45% of 60. 27 is 45% of 60. And here's our last example. 44 is what percent of 80? As before, let's obtain decimal equation for this question by converting each part into mathematical symbols. So 44 is the number, it stays like that. Is an equal sign. What percent? That's something that we don't know. So I'm going to put x. I'm not putting any extra symbols here. In my equation, I shouldn't have any percentage symbols. So it's just x. That all represents unknown percent. Of, that's the multiplication. And then 80 is just a number. So I'm putting 80 here. Okay, like that. Well, here's our equation. to solve that, we need to get x by itself. It means that we need to get rid of 80 over here. Since it's times 80, we're going to divide by 80 to get rid of it. So divide by 80 on the right hand side, and of course divide by 80 on the left hand side. I can cross out 80s, and on the right hand side I have just x. I need to find what it equals to. For that, I need to divide 44 by 80. So I'm going to use long division. 44 divided by 80. 44 goes in the box, 80 goes outside, right? 44 divided by 80. In and out. In and out. 44 goes in. 80 is outside. Like that. Okay, let's start dividing. Now 4 I cannot divide by 80, 44 I cannot divide by 80, right? It's not big enough. So what do? Well, what we do here, we're gonna place decimal point, and we're gonna add another 0 over here. And now we'll be looking at 440. And so that I don't forget about decimal point in my answer, as soon as I place it here, I'm gonna right away put it above, and that's where it's going to be positioned in the answer. Okay, so let's divide. 440, how many times 80 goes into 440? Well, that's 5 times, right? So 5. 5 times 80, that's 400. Subtract, the remainder is 40. And we need to continue dividing since remainder is not 0. But what I'll do, I'll add another 0 at the end, and that's the one I'm going to bring down right here. So it's now 400. 80 goes 5 times into 400. 5 times 80 is 400, and here's the remainder is 0. So what answer did we get? We got answer 0.55. So x equals 0.55. Now notice that the question was 44 is what percent of 80, and we got 0.55. Here we have to remember that when we set up the equation, or when we solve this kind of equation, we never work with pure percentages. We work with corresponding decimals. So that answer, 0.55, it actually a decimal representation of that percent. And when we obtain this answer, we have to convert it to percent. Well, what is 0.55 in terms of percentages? Remember, we have to move decimal point 2 places to the right to obtain percentage. That's same as 55%. So that's going to be the answer. And now if I want to write it as a sentence, then I'll say 44 is 55% of 80. Is 55% of 80. Okay, so that's going to be the answer.